Well, hey, high school, it's the end of another week. Middle school, it's the end of another week. It was good to see you guys Wednesday night. And it'll be good to see you again at the Hangout on Monday night, middle school, and then high school this coming Wednesday. The link is in our bio on Instagram, but we want to see you here for worship as well. So, as we end the week, Matthew chapter 23 talks about this idea of hypocrisy. And there's a lot of mental images that Jesus gives and kind of describing that. We're going to read it here in just a little bit. But here's the big idea, really, as we're thinking about this devotion to end the week. And Paul Tripp says it like this: is when you think you're righteous, you expect other people to be righteous as well. So you become demanding, judgmental, and constantly disappointed. Maybe here's another way of saying that. When we think highly of ourselves, we think others should match how we act, how we behave, and how righteous and good that we are. And the reality is like we'll always be disappointed. And so when we look at them like that, then all of a sudden we become judgmental when they don't measure up. The reality is relationships will always break down at the point of expectations. So if you have a high view of the relationship and of yourself, really, and you expect the other person to be as righteous or as good as you are, people are always going to let you down there. And you're always going to let others down. And so as we read this in Matthew chapter 23, we'll get to it. There's like 7 different woes in there. And it's not like woe, but like woe is in a warning. And we're just going to read all of Matthew chapter 23. It's a little bit longer, but I want you just to kind of soak in this and see what Jesus is trying to do, because he's really confronting the Pharisees, but specifically he's confronting their hypocrisy. And I think there's something very, very important that you and I can learn in that. Matthew chapter 23 says, "Then Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his disciples. The scribes and the Pharisees are seated in the chair of Moses. Therefore, do whatever they tell you and observe it. But don't do what they do, because they don't practice what they teach. They tie up heavy loads that are hard to carry and put them on people's shoulders, but they themselves aren't willing to lift a finger to move them. They do everything to be seen by others. They enlarge their phylacteries and lengthen their tassels. They love the place of honor at banquets, the front seats in the synagogues, greetings in the marketplaces, and to be called rabbi by people. But you are not to be called rabbi, because you all have one teacher, and you are all brothers and sisters. Do not call anyone on earth your father, because you have one Father, who is in heaven. You are not to be called instructors either, because you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted." Now here come the woes that he is giving to the Pharisees. Here's the first one. "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you don't go in, and you don't allow those entering to go in." Here's the second one. "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to make one convert, and when he becomes one, you make him twice as fit for hell as you are." That's harsh, right? Here's the third one. "Woe to you, blind guides, who say, whoever takes an oath by the temple, it means nothing, but whoever takes an oath by the gold of the temple is bound by his oath. Blind fools! For which is greater, the gold or the temple that sanctified the gold? Also, whoever takes an oath by the altar, it means nothing, but whoever takes an oath by the gift that is on it is bound by his oath. Blind people! For which is greater, the gift or the altar that sanctifies the gift? Therefore, the one who takes an oath by the altar takes an oath by it and by everything on it. The one who takes an oath by the temple takes an oath by it and by him who dwells in it. And the one who takes an oath by heaven takes an oath by God's throne and by him who sits on it." The next woe. "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You pay a tenth of mint, dill, and cumin, and yet you have neglected the more important matters of the law: justice, mercy, and faithfulness. These things should have been done without neglecting the others. Blind guides, you strain out a gnat, but gulp down a camel." Don't you love the imagery that Jesus uses here? The next woe. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup, so that the outside of it may also become clean. The next woe. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which appear beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of the bones of the dead and every kind of impurity. In the same way, on the outside you seem righteous to people, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You build the tombs of the prophets and decorate the graves of the righteous. And you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we wouldn't have taken part with them in shedding the prophets' blood. So you testify against yourselves that you are descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up, then, the measure of your ancestors' sin. Snakes, brood of vipers, how can you escape being condemned to hell? This is why I am sending you prophets, sages, and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town. So all the righteous blood shed on the earth will be charged to you, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah, son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. Truly I tell you, all these things will come on this generation. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I wanted to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. So Jesus has some harsh words there for Pharisees, for hypocrites. And I think that's something that we need to take warning of. And so how do you become a hypocrite? It's like when you say one thing but do another. We know that kind of hypocrite. But it's also when you think so highly of yourself and you try to hold others to that same standard. And that's what Paul Tripp was talking about in our devotion today. So here's my encouragement. The last sentence in this devotional is really good. And I'm going to summarize it like this. Like, the tenderness of your response to other people is directly related to how accurate your view is of yourself, and reminding yourself that there's grace for that too. That makes sense? Like, your tenderness and how you speak to others and how you treat others and how you consider yourself better than someone else, or maybe not better than someone else. The tenderness in your response to other people is related to how you view yourself. And sometimes we don't view ourselves very well either. And Tripp is saying that there's grace for that too. So these are harsh words that Jesus says here in Matthew 23. And I think if we're being honest, all of us could probably relate to something like that. Many times we're like the whitewashed tombs where we look really good on the outside, we got it all together, but inside we're falling apart and we're dead. We're spiritually dead. So here's a chance over the weekend. What's it look like to take some time to refresh your relationship with the Lord? To take joy in your relationship with the Lord. Let the joy of the Lord be your strength. And so I pray that you have a great weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday. Don't forget to sign up for Reunion Week. High school, the link is in our bio. Middle school, all that stuff got sent to your parents on email, and we'd love to get you signed up for that. We look forward to that, just like 1 month almost from today. We'll see you soon. Have a great weekend.